Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a fascinating topic that connects three generations Gen X, Gen Z, and what I like to call Gen Y. Because if there's one thing all of us seem to be asking lately, it's why. Why is the world like this? Why do we feel disconnected, burn out, yet more aware than ever? Why does every generation seems to think that next one has it easy, while the younger ones feel like they're cleaning up someone else's mess? So, today we're unpacking that how the modern world has shaped our lives, mindset, value of three of these generations, and maybe even when we're heading next. Meet the generations. Let's start by setting the stage. Gen X, born roughly between 1965 to 1980, the so called middle child between the boomers and millennials. They grew up with rotary phones, cascade tapes, and lot of independence. Latchkey kids, raised on TV dinners and MTV. They watched the world go from analog to digital, literally. They saw the Berlin Wall fall, rise of the internet, and the birth of the modern tech industry. Then we skip a couple of generations to Gen Z, born between 1997 and 2012, the first true digital natives. They never knew a world without Wi Fi, smartphones, or Google. For them, identity is flexible, culture moves fast, and the world is both smaller and more overwhelming than ever before. And then there's what I call Gen Y, not an official label, but a mindset that cuts across age groups. Gen Y includes anyone who's questioning the old systems. Why should I work myself to death for a company that doesn't care? Why can't mental health be taken seriously? Why do we keep repeating mistakes our parents warned us about? So, whether you are Gen X, Gen Z, or Gen Y, this episode is about how the modern world is shaping what it means to live, work, and dream today. Technological earthquake. Let's talk tech, the greater equalizer and divider. For Gen X, technology was a miracle. Computers were clunky, the internet made weird noises, and owning a cell phone made you feel like a movie star. But the excitement was real. Tech meant opportunity. Then came Gen Z, the generation that doesn't remember a time before smartphones. They didn't adapt to the internet, they were born into it. That changes everything. Attention spans shortened, information exploded, and the communication between both easier and somehow lonelier. We went from call me later to I am always online, from privacy to personal branding, and now people are exhausted. Even Gen X, who built the tech revolution, are now saying, wait, this isn't what we wanted. Meanwhile, Gen Z is trying to redefine what being online means, seeking authenticity, community, and purpose through screens. Tech has given us more power than any generation before, and it's also blurring the lines between work and rest, real and fake, self and screen. The work ethic divide. Now let's talk about the workplace, the battle of generations. Gen X came of age with the work hard, play later mindset. They were taught that loyalty, consistency, and pulling in the hours was the path to success. They endured the cubicle culture, survived the 2008 financial crisis, and became managers who value reliability above all else. Now enters Gen Z, and they're like, oh, no thanks. For them, work is not the center of identity. They want flexibility, purpose, and mental health days. They will quit a job that drains them, even if it pays well. And that freaks some Gen Xers out. And here's the thing, both generations are right in their own context. Gen X had to survive a world where stability was rare. Gen Z is surviving a world where burnout is the norm. Gen Y, that mindset, is the bridge. It's asking, why do we work this way? Why is rest seen as weakness? And why can success include happiness? Money, stress, and the cost of living. Now let's talk about the thing that quietly shapes every generation's mindset: money. For Gen X, buying a house was hard but possible. But for Gen Z, it's often a fantasy. Wages hadn't kept up the costs, and the American dream or any dream feels like it's behind the paywall. Gen X learned to save, budget, and grind. Gen Z learned to side hustle, invest, and adapt. Bo- But both are anxious because the rules keep changing. Inflation, debt, AI automation, three forces making everyone question their future. And maybe that's what defines Gen Y the most, the realization that the old systems didn't work the same way anymore. The generation is rewriting the playbook, asking not how do I get rich, but how do I live well? Mental health and meaning. Here's something that truly defines modern life: mental health awareness. Gen X grew up in a world where therapy was for other people. You didn't talk about feelings, you just pushed through. Gen Z grew up in a world where everyone talks about feelings online and school and even in beams. But being aware doesn't always mean being okay. Because now young people are battling anxiety, depression, and information overload like never before. Everything feels urgent, everything feels like too much. Gen Y steps in again, asking the question: how do we find peace in a world that never shuts up? Meditation apps, therapy culture, digital detox. These aren't fads, they're survival tools for a generation that's constantly on. Identity, culture, and connection. Let's talk about identity. Who we are in this ever changing world. Gen X grew up with labels: punk, goth, jock, nerd. You picked one and stuck with it. Gen Z, they treat identities like playlists: mix, match, and update anytime. Gender, career, politics, style, everything's fluid. To some, that's confusing, and to others, that's freedom. And maybe that's the biggest generation shift. We're moving from fitting in to figuring out. The world's fastest, louder, and more chaotic, but also more open than ever. You can connect with people who understand you, even if they live halfway across the world. But the openness comes with pressure to be unique, to have a brand, to be seen. So, while Gen Z is more expressive, they're also more exhausted by the need to constantly be someone. The future. So, where do we go from here? Gen X hits their 40s and 50s, wise, experienced, and still hungry for relevance. Gen Z is entering the workforce, building culture, and reshaping politics. And Gen Y, that questioning spirit, is what ties them together. Because this generation across ages is not satisfied with how it's always been. They're demanding better for the planet, for each other, for themselves. Maybe the future isn't about age, it's about awareness. About asking the hard questions. Why are we here? Why are we building? And who are we becoming in the process? So whether you are Gen X, Gen Z, or proudly Gen Y, remember this. Every generation inherits the world and then redefines it. The questions you are asking today might just be the answers the next one needs. If you found this topic interesting, hit like, drop a comment and about the generations you're part of and your biggest why question is. Because the more we understand each other, the better chances we have at shaping a future we all want to live in. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next in the next one.